Hi, and welcome to the short version of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. This is where you'll find the spoiler-free basics of the film we examined in our live stream, including our first thoughts and whether or not we think it'll be worth your time. Now, the other night, Jim and I asked the question, does Ridley Scott's sci-fi classic Blade Runner hold up? Were we being presumptuous, arrogant, blasphemous even? You could say that, and probably are in the comments right now. And this is why we brought in a ringer, special guest host Matt Flisvetter, who is not only a professor of media and communications at the University of Winnipeg, he has written extensively, including a number of books, analyzing philosophy, ideology, and criticism, and its intersection with film, media, and social media, including one on Blade Runner and postmodernism. I think you'll really like what came out of this awesome conversation. Enjoy. Recorded in the socially distant studios of the Rob Christensen Radio Network, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies, the short version. Right, guys. Listen, we've got a lot of work cut out for us, so we're asking the question, does the film hold up? Here's the logline from Netflix. In a smoke-choked dystopian Los Angeles, Blade Runner Rick Deckard is called out of retirement to snuff a quartet of escaped replicants. Blade Runner was directed by Ridley Scott. The screenplay, written by Hampton, Fancher, and David Peoples, was based on the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Now, here's an interesting note. The title Blade Runner was from another dystopian science fiction novel written by Alan E. Nourse called The Blade Runner, about actual smuggling of medical supplies over borders. You know what, we can discuss that in detail later. Another interesting note is that one of Mr. Nourse's pen names was Dr. X, which I find all kinds of entertaining. Of course, the film starred Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, and Sean Young, and was supported by performances from Edward James Olmos, Emmet Walsh, William Sanderson, Brion James, Joe Turkel, Joanna Cassidy, and in an early, I would say, it may be her first or one of her first big screen performances, Daryl Hannah. Now, as for the ideological ingredients, folks, now would it earn a gender-balanced reframe stamp? No, it would not. Was it union made? Yes, it was. Would it pass the Bechdel test? No, but I gotta tell you, folks, it's the least of its narrative challenges when it comes to its portrayal of women. And now, is it class conscious? Is it perfect? I think based on my criteria, I am going to argue, yes, this is actually a class conscious film. But I'm sure we'll get into that a little more as we move forward. All right. Anyway, I think that's about it. Gentlemen, let's get into it. First thoughts. Jim, why don't you lead us off, and then we'll go to Matt, and then we'll come to me. Is that good?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. I'll
Give
just
us your
call
first
it.
takes, man.
Yeah. I will say that I haven't watched this movie in its entirety in a while. So when I did watch it, it kind of surprised me in a couple of ways. It's way more deliberate than I remembered. I sort of remembered it as like a movie I saw in the summer, and I guess I deduced from that it was like an action adventure. You know, it's Harrison Ford, so, and it was a lot. It's a bit of a creeper, this movie. Like it's, you know, it's not by deliberate. That's not a euphemism for slow, but it takes its time, and it's less of a. Even the fight scenes aren't set pieces, I would argue. They're not big extended fights, and in fact, Deckard is pretty terrible at fighting. So that was a surprise. The violence comes in bunches. So that was kind of, a couple in the second act, couple in the third act. But there's I barely remember anything about Blade Runner 2049. I had to watch the trailer and reread the Wikipedia page. But yeah, I remember so much. I remember the shot of Leon smacking the gun out of Deckard's hand. I remember Daryl Hannah's eye makeup, Jorah's clear raincoat. I remember the cars. I remember the dolls. There's so this was so evocative to me when I was young, and I suspect because I saw it when I was jonesing for some grown-up science fiction. But yeah, it was. I started this at about 1 a.m. last night. I was really tired. I thought, oh, am I going to make it? And about, half an hour later, I was totally on the edge of my couch, and it was a great watch. I was totally jazzed after I saw it. It was perfect.
How old were you when you first saw it, Jim?
I was probably early teens, yeah, and I think I saw it in the theater as well. To the point where when Daryl Hannah was trying to crush his head with her legs, I thought, oh, that's kind of sexual, and I was kind of oh, that makes me feel funny, but I sort of remember that. But yeah, I just remember it being super evocative, and it's more of this, please. You watch enough of the science fiction for kids, or for the sort of the broadly painted science fiction. That's one thing, but this was, and a few years later, Outland came out, and that's sort of similar, all these sort of darker gloom. Dune, it's sort of up there with the grown-up stuff that maybe different than the candy-coated science fiction that you grew up with. So
sounds good.
Anyway, that's Matt. My first time.
Oh, great! That's great, Matt.
Yeah, first thoughts. Does it hold up?
We're going to answer that question at the end. Just your first thoughts from rewatching the film.
So I have the luxury of having seen this film because I wrote the book well over 100 times in various different versions. At a certain point, you kind of get sick of watching the same thing over again.
I wonder what he's going to say at the end, Jim.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that I think actually rewards repeated viewing. I mean, every time I watch it, there's always something new that I get out of it, and the fact that it's had so many different incarnations. I think most people know just the three major ones: the original theatrical release, the director's cut, which was the first one I saw probably on VHS when it was first available on VHS after the theatrical release, and then the final cut version. I think. Very, very similar to the director's cut, but with some minor additions that I think they combined, because there was an international release, and then there was a television cut too. And I think that the television cut included some of the more violent scenes from the international cut. I think all of this went back into the final cut version that people are watching on Netflix probably right now. I mean, some of the things that you were saying about, does it, the class conscious thing? Absolutely. I think that there's so much in this movie that definitely helps us to understand not just a class consciousness of the characters, but even a way to think about, the problems that, of convincing the exploited today how to understand the conditions of their exploitation. I think that there's so much in this movie, not even just in terms of class consciousness, but even in terms of the way the film addresses problems of racism and sexism, I think still, allow us to talk about these issues today. And then, you look at the aesthetic of this movie, and there is not a single cyberpunk movie that you can watch today that doesn't pay homage to Ridley Scott's and the Sid Mead set design. I mean, it's all there. So I think that there's a lot that's, even if you haven't seen the film recently or never seen it at all, when you watch it, I think you'll find it very familiar, right? Just the look of it.
You could almost say they're like Star Wars, and this is almost like I'm referring. If Star Wars defined one half of science fiction, space opera, aesthetically and story-wise, like the story subjects, the focus on the individual, the overcoming of odds and all that. And then I like the way Jim put it, and what you're talking about, what it can inform and how it can reward second viewings. You got the other bookend, the yin and the yang, or the Hegelian thesis antithesis. Oh, I might be stretching it a little too far. On the other, but really the adult science fiction, hey, this is what our actual world could look like. Does that jive with what you're saying there, Matt? Like I'm getting excited about what you're both talking about, but.
I mean, yeah. I think that for a number of reasons, it's useful to compare Blade Runner to Star Wars, which I actually do. There's a part in my book where I talk a little bit about comparing the generic dimensions, like the way that they both create new forms of science fiction through the blending of older genres. I mean, if you look at Star Wars, it's blending, the Saturday mornings, serial type of sci-fi with, the Kurosawa samurai. With the Western, I mean, those are all dimensions of Star Wars in the same way that Blade Runner combines elements of the 1940s, noir detective story. Hard-boiled detective, exactly, right?
I read that part.
I mean, there you go, right? So it's kind of,
it's a
useful comparison.
Yeah,
but there's sorry, I'm just laughing there, but I mean I lost it completely with the gold star comment.
It's okay. You know what? We've got lots of time. Like we're just at the start here. Okay. For myself, guys, the only thing I think I could add to it was, and this is almost a riff on what Jim said. I remember when I saw it when I was a kid, and I wasn't sure. Like I am such a Star Wars was such a brand in my brain. I'm so glad I went when I was a kid. I was amazed by it. It certainly had a stamp on me, much like Jim said. Yeah, all this stuff you remember. There's no, I would find it hard to believe anyone coming out of that film, unless they really just concentrated on not paying attention. Could you not come away and go, I don't know, what was it about again? I don't know. You're not shrugging this one off. That said, when I was a kid, I got to admit, I'm not sure I enjoyed it. When I was a kid, I was okay. I'm still now a fan of the happy ending. So them slapping that on, I think I intellectually rebelled when you heard it wasn't supposed to end that way. But now I find it such a more like the by the end of this film, although it's got its challenges, by the end of it, it's like, now that's a satisfying ending. And I will speak more on that later.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
I just have 2 points. So I'm reading it from a book I've recently read. I'm going to quote, "By questioning the essence of Rachel's as well as Deckard's identity, Blade Runner troubles the opposition between master and servant, suggesting that there is no essential basis for this division. In fact, as Zizek claims, Blade Runner is actually a film about the emergence of class consciousness." So that's just in relation to the earlier thing. The other thing, too, under first thoughts, I was so, again...
Yeah, that's not a first thought, by the by.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that in.
Once you're quoting Zizek, you're way beyond first thoughts, but continue.
That was from Matt. That's from Matt's book, anyway. So
and now we'll throw Matt under the bus. There you go, Matt.
But the other thing that I wanted to say is that, and I've always been impressed by Rutger Hauer's Roy Batty, but this time it sort of made me wonder a couple of things about it. One is that because Deckard is kind of not a hero.
Okay, can you hold on?
Sure, yeah, okay.
Is that like a first thought, or is that something where we're getting more into the story?
I'll bring it down in a line.
Yeah.
Is or should Roy Batty be the true main character of this movie? Just throwing it out there, just to be food for thought. Anyway.
Okay. All right. An interesting question, which we will answer, I think, as we get into the story and the themes and everything. Yeah. But first, it's our lightning round. Is this film worth your time? Matt, you go first, your company. Just a yes or no answer. Okay, well, yes, you get 4 answers here. Just a solid yes, or a yes but, where you qualify your yes. No but, and you can qualify the no, or just a straight up no. There you go. There are your options.
Straight up yes. Straight up yes.
Okay. Jim?
Definitely worth your time.
Straight up yes.
I'm going to give the yes, but I got to put an asterisk. Although, you know what? I'm open to having my mind changed, but there is a love story here that I could not see on screen now without a lot more unpacking. Whereas here, I don't think it's, let's say, part of any subversive message the filmmakers were making. They were just, well, this is what a hero does. He tells the woman. And that, I think that's something we got to put an asterisk on, because it's like, at times it's like, this is like date rape. I did not see it that way when I was a kid. I'm not saying I was yeah.
The love scene's a bit rough.
It's, yeah. But anyway, but otherwise, you're right, Matt. There's so much in this movie, so much more than just a 40s noir. Hello again. I hope you enjoyed that taste of what was a real banger of an episode, which you can watch in full here. I'll also take this opportunity to invite you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on what's happening with my channel, including our weekly live stream show, Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, and the occasional Rob's Hot Mic reviews, /rankings, /reactions to film and television related nonsense that piques my interest. Thanks. I've been in your